Welcome back to the program, everyone. Let's get the conversation on the state of the economy up and going live. Let's cross over straight to our Abuja studios and, of course, the full operations of Channels Television there at the country's political capital. Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who is the Senior Special Advisor to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment. It's good to have you, Doctor, join us at this time. We appreciate it's a very busy time, but let's have this very interesting conversation. Welcome to the program. My first question to you, if you were listening a few minutes ago, from Michael Famaroti, who is the Chief Economist at Vetiva Capital, and I asked him what he would like to ask you if he's the one conducting this interview. So let's start with that. And he asked, what is the administration's long-term plan on ease of doing business?
Thank you very much for having me. Sorry, I've lost you. Sorry, I lost you there.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I think that's probably one of the questions that we get asked the most, the sustainability plan. And the short answer is that the sustainability depends on the Nigerian people. We actually need your support to hold the government, whatever government, accountable to these reforms. Every government agency that has made reforms, they are the ones making the reforms. Those reforms can be unwound if accountability steps are not put in place. So we have the PEBEC.report. It's an app. That's one of the quickest ways to give feedback. You can also send emails directly. We've made sure that every MDA has a customer service center functioning, communicates with the public regularly, has a website that details all the procedures, the timelines, the cost, who is responsible. So it's actually going to depend on Nigerians holding MDAs and the government at large responsible and accountable for these reforms. Now, that's for the reforms in general. For
I like that.
And for the Enabling Business Environment Secretariat,
I like that.
We are not another government agency. We work in tandem as a transformation office with ministries, departments, and agencies. So we work with them to have built-in strategies into their own procedures and their own KPIs and timelines, so that it's part and parcel of the way government operates going forward.
Dr. Jumoke, a very relatively short answer to a very long question, but I get what you said. This was what part of what the Vice President talked about on June the 25th, and I'm sure you were there at the PEBEC 2018 First Executive Order report, which shows the administration is committed to improving the economy. This is part of what the Vice President says. He said we're talking about changing mindsets, because it is not just about putting in place systems, it is more about changing the way people think. Who are the people that the Vice President was talking about here?
The people is actually everybody. You and I. The people is Nigeria. So starting with the public and civil service, how we deliver services to Nigerian people, to business people, whether foreigners or Nigerian investors, Nigerian business owners, how do we deliver government services as regulators, at agencies that serve you? We're public and civil servants. We need to care about transparency. We need to care about efficiency. We need to care about timelines. We need to care about pleasing our customers. So we've been working very hard at training and ensuring that there's a customer-centric delivery of government services. That's the first thing. And of course, it's not something that's done in a day, because I know that there's a huge trust deficit, and people might actually be listening to me right now and thinking she's in another country. No, you would have started hearing different stories of Nigerians. There was someone, I believe Mr. Amoni, at the airport the other day that found a piece of luggage that was lost and looked for and refused to take any remuneration. There was another officer, Lagos State Emergency Services, that rescued someone on the bridge and refused to take any sort of thank you money. This is the new Nigeria. So that's the first mindset. The second mindset, apart from government, is the private sector, the civil society. We had a stakeholder engagement with civil society last week, and we said to them, you're the conscience of the society. Hold government accountable, pay attention, make contributions. That is what will make these reforms vibrant and lasting. And we've said to private sector, let things not be business as usual. work with the system, test it. It may take a bit longer, stay with it, stay on the path of integrity. It takes a private sector giving a bribe for a public official to accept a bribe. Don't go for the easier way. Don't give that 5K to someone you know to call to beat the system and get something for you in 24 hours. The system is now 24 hours, so test the system. When people come to me asking me for help, say with visa on arrival, I send them straight to the immigration website. It's 48 hours. You don't need to know me. You don't need to know the Comptroller General. You don't need to know anybody. Test the system and help us deepen the system and make things work. So what His Excellency was saying is that it behoves all of us to change our mindsets and to actually support the reforms and make them work.
The Vice President also at that meeting with the private sector, a number of government organizations spoke about tackling regulatory challenges. He says, and this is one paragraph of his statement, he says, in the coming months, we will tackle regulatory challenges and bureaucratic complaints. We continue to lean on the private sector because this is really about how government works with the private sector. And of course, if the VP wants to say this has to do with the private sector satisfaction in the business environment. The key words here, regulatory challenges and bureaucratic complaints. What's your reaction, Doctor?
Well, when we talk about regulatory challenges, we've had a colossal amount of feedback from the private sector. Last year, on September 11th, we had a quarterly business forum where the topic on ease of doing business was on regulators as business facilitators. So we actually asked private sector to come and speak to government agencies. We had at least 50 regulators in the room. And private sector addressed regulators, chronicling the issues that were really inconveniencing them across different sectors. It wasn't anything personal. Arbitrary fines, arbitrary change of guidelines and regulations, just procedural delays, delays in approvals. A lot was said. And we committed to working with the private sector to work on a framework. So for the next 6 months or so, we had a technical working group, including one of our think tanks, including private sector, organized private sector, about a law firm, a section of business law had a representative, and we had some private sector representation. And we looked at the different issues across various regulators, particularly those that affect the business climate. And what we decided was to undertake a regulatory reform program, having come up with a list of generic things and looking at global best practice that disproportionately affect businesses through regulation. So we're having a pilot project that we're starting. We announced it on the 25th of June. We're starting with NAFDAC and NICOM. Both agencies are aware. They're selected because there's a need for reform and because they're reform-minded and ready to take on these challenges. So watch out in the next few months for regulatory reforms in NAFDAC and in NICOM. We're going to be looking at timelines. We're going to be looking at efficiency, transparency, and tackling all the issues that private sector have said to us that regulators are lacking in supporting particular industries. Regulators are supposed to be facilitators of business and, of course, holding sectors accountable for sustainability and stability of sectors. So that is what the government has decided to take on. The PEBEC has taken on the challenge. And from July, this month, we've started working on this regulatory reform program.